Welcome to the Near Memo, a weekly conversation about search, social, and commerce. What happened, why it matters, and the implications for local. Welcome back, everybody, to the Near Memo, episode 37, amazingly. Although 36 is not yet up, Mike, in your absence. Anyway.
Help these days.
It's in the can, but we have to still get it up. Anyway, episode 37, and we're very excited and pleased to have special guest Claire Carlisle from Bright Local and Claire Carlisle Marketing, Dual Identity, and of course, as always, Mike Blumenthal. David Mim is joining Jeff Bezos and William Shatner in space, and so that's why he's not here today. No, I don't know do you know where he's on vacation, I think, right?
I don't know.
Yeah, okay. At any rate, so we're here to talk about search, social, and commerce as always. And we have always too many things that we want to get to, but we can only pick three. And we're going to start with Mike and the Federal Trade Commission's somewhat surprising action this week. Tell us what they did.
So they put advertiser on notice that only honest opinions are legitimate. They mailed 700 leading companies, tech companies, Apple, Google, Yelp, Comcast, and a range of others, Ford Motors, and advised them of the rules around testimonials and endorsements. And a lot of people took it to mean that these companies had somehow, violated FTC rules. If you read the notices carefully, essentially, this is sort of the first salvo going forward. And all it does is, since they've put these companies on notice, if any one of them were ever to violate the rules, they would then be eligible for fines. Without this notice, the FTC would have been basically handcuffed into just a wrist slap or limited to just a wrist slap, whereas now they can fine them for $37,000 or something, $43,792 per violation. So now they're able to give fines. So it's basically administrative housekeeping that gives teeth to their enforcement around reviews. It really doesn't mean anything about these 700 companies. They just pick 700 big companies that are, that might possibly at some point in the future violate the rules. So it's more of a administrative thing than it is.
It's sort of prophylactic in a certain way then?
Yes. They're putting big companies on notice that not only are they watching, but that they can be fined as well if they were to violate these.
So I took it to mean that there was some suspicion or some potential transgression going on at these companies. I mean, was Google on the list?
Google was on the list, but they made it quite clear on the form. They said notice of penalty offenses. In other words, they were just notifying of the types of offenses they're concerned about. Notices of penalty offenses concerning deceptive or unfair content around endorsements and testimonials. The fact that a company is on this list is not an indication that it's done anything wrong. This is at the top of the list. So it really is just the biggest guys in the country, the biggest companies, the most heavily used. They're just putting them on notice that not only will the endorsement rules be enforced, but there will be financial penalties as a result. Historically, there haven't been. This results from that Sandy Riley ruling in 2019, where they caught Sandy Riley dead to rights, and all they were able to do was slap their wrists.
Right.
Because it was an administrative decision.
Well, it's interesting. Why wouldn't you put every big brand in the country on notice then? If this is merely a notification that you better be careful, why wouldn't you just send this out to every, Fortune 500, every big brand, everybody? Why these 700? I mean, this is not the exhaustive list.
Well, this is the second time in 2 weeks they've done this. Last week, 2 weeks ago, they did it to educational institutions, private education institutions, which have a long history of abuse. So I believe that they are targeting types of companies in certain industries where it's more where the practice is more common.
Okay.
But again, there is no indication. I know a lot of people thought it was like the first shot across the bow of enforcement. It is basically, from where I sit, an administrative thing that gives them more power going forward. It's not as exciting as it first appeared.
Yeah, definitely not. So, Claire, what about in the UK with fake reviews? I mean, there's a enormous problem in this country, and it exists globally. But has the government done anything, to your knowledge, to crack down on review fraud at all?
Thanks for springing that on me, Greg. It's awesome that I know so much about that.
Well, if you can't answer,
you can make it up. You can make it up, Claire. It's okay. Nobody will know.
Yeah, I don't know much about the legality side of stuff, but I do know that it comes up quite often, particularly covered in the news. There was the BBC piece about the guy who was an auto dealer that was saying his business had been ruined by fake reviews. So it sort of bubbles to the surface in the media. And then I know that all of his reviews were removed by Google, but I'm not sure in terms of what the legalities of the system in the UK, because it's not something that I see a lot of. And when I do, it's very small scale because of the types of businesses that I work with, and we just tackle it directly. Right.
So I've written a report on this, which was done in conjunction with a company called the Transparency Company. We looked at Google. I'm not going to reveal the data now, but we looked at Google, Yelp, Facebook, and TripAdvisor in the U.S. and then in London to identify what percentage of reviews across 19 different business categories were suspect. And it basically represents millions of reviews, and so it's quite an extensive problem that hopefully the FTC is starting to address in earnest with this move. Mike, anything else you want to say? I mean, it's disappointing that it's not a more aggressive move on their part.
It is aggressive though, because it gives them the ability to it's $43,792 per occurrence, which means any company that does it, let's say they create 100 fake reviews, we're talking $500,000, right? So it has the potential to have an impact. Although the companies that are likely to be cheating are likely not on this list. This list included a lot of upstanding companies, but we'll see. Maybe they seeded the list with 100 people they knew were cheating, and the other 600 were just camouflage.
There've got to be some cheaters on the list, I would imagine.
One would think so, with 700 names.
Well, so Google is an interesting case here, because Google has millions of fake reviews on its site, and Google's on this list. But under Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act, they're not liable for those reviews.
Right. That's correct.
I guess in any kind of a private action, but this is a regulatory context, so maybe that wouldn't supersede. Anyway, out of my area of knowledge here.
It doesn't seem to impact Section 230 in any way. I don't think that but we'll see. Okay. It's part and parcel of their ongoing effort to create tighter rules, clear communication around those rules, and stronger enforcement. But it is just one of those building blocks. It's not anything significant.
Yes.
Thanks for joining David, Mike, and Greg. To stay on top of the latest developments in local, subscribe to our newsletter at nearmedia.co. We'll see you next week.